Good evening, ladies and gentlemen out there in YouTube land. I am Deleted Scenes, human being, American, and YouTube Ronin, and I would like to welcome you to tonight's episode of Live from Sparkwood in 21. This series chronicles the cult classic television series Twin Peaks, created by the late great David Lynch and Mark Frost. Joining me on this odyssey are superfans Last Call Truckelli.
Hello, hello.
Netters Network.
Good evening.
And Aged Boomer.
Good evening. Twice. I didn't want to do hello again.
Okay.
I'm going to wear that out. Go ahead.
All right. I would like to say hello to everyone joining us tonight on X. I can't see you, but I know that you're there. In the private chat, Faithful Blue Wrench, channel member, the Bird Woman of YouTube, Connie Cleary, channel member, JPRPH1. Connie gifting a last call membership.
She gifted on your channel, on my channel, and on Netter's channel. And I suspect that if we could get Boomer monetized, she would have gifted him a membership too.
You know what I will say, though? Connie Cleary is always very nice. She always leaves a thank you after the stream. So thank you, Connie.
She does everything she can to that is why she's such a wonderful supporter with the likes and the shares and she's a member, and then she gifts memberships and the comments. People, you guys don't realize those comments really do. I do find that people say, yeah, I found your channel because, this video got suggested to me, and I'll go look at the video. It's got the most comments on it or whatever. So it really does help, guys.
All right. Connie also a member for 4 months on, I think, one of your channels. Because she's been a member with me since the beginning, which is closer to a year. So
I think Netter got the memberships the most recently, so I think that's why it's over on her channel.
Yep.
Right on.
Mrs. Deadman Walking got mine.
Yay, Mrs. Deadman Walking, right on.
Good.
All right. Big Al Presents is with us.
Good to see you, buddy.
Ruby Hoove dropping a membership over on Troy's side.
Yep, and that went to, one of those two memberships went to Andy Masterson. I'm kind of pleased with that.
On.
Yeah.
Cool. Infinity, the timey-wimey. Good to see you, sir.
The timey-wimey. I love that.
Ruby Hoove still here. Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Ruby Hoove dropping a $5 super chat. Hope everyone is doing well. I seem to be improving here. For my
you do sound a whole lot better.
Yeah, I am starting to sound like it. I sound like a frog a little bit still. That's because I've been talking all night. But yes, I just completed. The reason why we are late getting started, folks, is I just completed the Mystery Movie Night podcast with Sin's Corner, Kyle Corwith, and Off the Cover, talking about the movie Novocaine. And we were kind of mixed. We had different opinions on it, so check out.
Was this a remake?
No.
So you're going back and watching the it's not related to the Kevin Bacon, Nancy Allen, that old one. That's the only Novocaine I knew of.
No, this is a completely different film. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you. To everybody who is dropping the memberships and the super chats because guys, I don't know if you've noticed this, Deleted, but something that Michael French had been talking about for a long time before I, even got monetized. He said it. I had no reason to doubt him, but viewership and memberships seem to fall off in February. And I found that to be very true this year. This was the first February I was going through with monetization. And yeah, I lost a lot of viewership and a lot of memberships. And guys, you guys are going to keep me alive doing this. I swear, because that was, I'm not one of these big channels that, oh yeah, it just ebbs and flows and I just go with it, man. No. Right now I'm small enough that, the smallest little thing, you hit the like button and I notice it, man. But anyway, yeah, you can hear, I actually heard him roboting and I thought it might've been his voice, but no, it might be his internet.
Who?
Deleted.
Oh, right.
No, don't worry. I know you're very proud of your bandwidth now that you have the booster on your side.
Well, I just want to make sure it's working, that I fix it, because it's been a problem for a few weeks now. So yeah.
So far, you've been doing pretty good. Good. I mean, you got a little fuzzy on Friday, but that might have been, the Clark and Sheffield that I was drinking.
It also might, maybe I was trying to upload something and that might have been what happened. Yeah, maybe that slowed it down.
Oh, right. Because you had the
slideshow.
Slideshow going. No slideshow tonight though, because again, we're going back to the notes, and I probably should give a
disclaimer.
I guess I don't want it to sound like that, and I don't want it to sound like I'm complaining, but guys, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going into this. I kind of told you guys last week, I did a big chunk of the book and I did the best I could to scale it down because I realized I was talking about a lot of real world conspiracy theory stuff. And I could have just as easily said, you want to go research aliens, lost civilizations, the Illuminati, the Freemasons, just go do that, But then I realized that the book was very specific how it tied those real world conspiracy theories into the lore of Twin Peaks. And I'm like, I kind of got to talk about that. Well, this week, I really only got through like 2 major chapters, not nearly as far as I did with the previous bit, but my notes are much, much bigger. And I'm like, I can't condense this too much more, because part of it is now we're starting to get into the talk about the history of the characters from Twin Peaks. And a lot of it is, if it was like a filmed kind of thing, you could see it as like a prequel to Twin Peaks, the backstory of some of these characters, going into a little bit of detail. Sometimes you only got like one line of dialogue about like Andrew Packard or something and his death and whatnot. They go into a lot more detail, and I figured I kind of have to cover that. So I actually have more notes this week than I did last week. So, and then on top of that, and we can talk about it later tonight. We can talk about it behind the scenes with deleted scenes, and but I just watched, and I encourage everyone else to do this as well. Check out the most recent video by Cameron. What's his name? What's the channel's name? Obnoxious and
Obnoxious and
Obnoxious and Anonymous.
I almost called him obnoxious and antagonistic. That's not it.
That's his brother.
That's his brother. Right. Obnoxious, anonymous, and obnoxious and anonymous. Right. Check out his most recent video. He's got a dialogue with, I didn't know who the other streamer was he had on, but they were talking about, they were talking a little bit about season 3 and their theories about it, specifically regarding the timey-wiminess. And I mean, I won't. I want you to go watch the video. I'm not going to get too into what he was sharing about, but he was under the impression that what we were seeing was Dale caught not caught in a time loop per se, but actually repeating loops. And he's got a kind of it's like source code or Groundhog's Day, the situation. He's trying to get the best outcome. And the fireman is kind of like his like a Quantum Leap, Al, kind of like the guide, but I thought it was a great theory, and that whole bit where Cooper falls into the box, and then it goes junk junk junk, forward and back. His theory was that was the number of times he's been through this loop, and you're seeing each one of them because he comes in at the same spot. See, so he's kind of like overlapping himself, and that's like new timelines being created there. I thought that was an interesting theory that I had not considered before.
Interesting.
But then he was talking about, I guess you might think of it as a spoiler, because people think that anytime someone references a show you haven't seen yet, it's a spoiler. But sometimes if you haven't seen something and you have no idea what they're talking about, it's hardly a spoiler, He was talking about his fan film, Queen of Hearts, and it really got me wanting to get onto that. So one of the things I was thinking about throwing out, I'll just do it now since I seem to be on a roll, is maybe after tonight, take a break from the secret history. I don't think it hurts anything if we break away from it, and then maybe start getting into Queen of Hearts, and then we can always come back to the second half of the secret history. Just a thought, we don't have to make any decision right now, especially before I've gotten through tonight's stream. But,
and I also want to remind anyone that's coming in the future, this is a commentary.
Yes.
Which means we're just talking. There's no slideshow. There's no lights and music and, clowns going across the screen. It's just our 4 avatars and we're talking.
Yeah.
If that's not something that you're into or you think that is going to be interesting for you, then please feel free to leave. But other people do find it interesting. So stop dissing on my channel.
Yeah, it kind of hurt my feelings a little bit because somebody came in and kind of was like, this is boring. I'm like, okay. Look, you guys know I have a pretty thick skin. Yes. I usually don't give a crap. But when someone says exactly the thing that you feel most insecure about, and that's exactly how I was feeling about last week's stream.
This is what this guy said. He said, it's boring. There's no movement in the host or guest pictures. I was like, it's a commentary. We say that at the beginning of the show. Yeah. Second, we use avatars because we don't all show our faces for privacy reasons. Why do you need to see us?
Right.
And maybe this isn't your cup of tea, but other people enjoyed it. So, spoiler, next week we're doing part 2. Basically, stay away if you don't like it.
I think it's a attention issue. I think that's what it is. People used to listen to books.
The TikTok generation can't handle more than a 3-minute video, I guess. So
I suppose.
I totally get that.
We said when we started this show that we were doing a deep dive into every facet of this show. We are going to be talking about the show itself. We are going to be talking about the films. We've come to talk about David Lynch's filmography in general, especially now that he has sadly passed. We wanted to discuss fan films, which is why eventually, we would like to have Cameron come on and discuss his film. There are books. We're talking about a book tonight. Yeah. There are, there's a video game. There's a fan video
which maybe isn't quite as good, but yes.
I have to look into it.
You haven't tried it yet, Boomer?
No, but I assume it's something that the fans have been working on, right?
Keeping in mind,
I've seen videos of it.
Yeah, what they put out so far was just a demo.
Right.
So I downloaded it to play it, and it's chunky. Let's just say that.
Wait a minute. Hold the phone.
Huh.
If what you're meaning by chonky is it has tank controls, it may be trying to be representative of games of that era.
Oh, it absolutely is. But
so they're trying to make it accurate to how it would have been made back in the day. I think that's what they're trying to do. Yeah.
Yes, I think they absolutely are, and it's hard to get back into that. It's very much like playing what was that King's Quest. It's kind of like playing King's Quest. Yeah, that one. That's the exact one I was thinking of, where it's got these the graphics are kind of right on par with Pitfall Harry, and yeah. But I mean, pretty good for what it was, but anyway, we'll get to that another night, I'm sure. But let's go ahead and, if you don't mind, going ahead and getting into it.
How dare you, sir? How dare you? No. Okay. Of course. Yeah, my part of that rant is over. People just, one thing that I have noticed is, there are people who are going to be trolls, and a good way to tell that is to look up their channels, and if they've been on YouTube for 14 years and don't have any subs, that's usually a pretty good way to see through their BS. So everybody gets them. You get them as I get them, and I don't even bother with them anymore. I don't engage with them. They can go to another channel.
Well, I figure it's engagement, so.
I also wanted to say something about this. Nate said, the best part of watching the films and the TV shows with you guys is the commentary. Considering I know that some of them you've really struggled with, that might not be such a high bar for you. But I appreciate what you're saying, Nate.
Indeed.
Because, some of it is pretty out there. Sometimes you're like, the hell did I just watch? Well, that's what we're here to talk about, Yeah. Okay, so last week, I kind of started getting into a couple of characters that weren't really big characters within the narrative of Twin Peaks. They were background characters, and we were giving the background of those background characters, one of which, of course, was Andrew Packard. And so now we're going to kind of jump to the near past from the perspective of the first season of Twin Peaks. So in 1983, Andrew Packard met Josette Mai Wong at a state-sponsored a state-sponsored black tie mixer at the Hong Kong Trade Center. She had been involved with his associate, Thomas Eckhart, but she ran off with Andrew, who brought her to his hometown of Twin Peaks, where she accepted his marriage proposal. But Eckhart had convinced or coerced her to arrange to have Andrew killed, which she did by enlisting the help of Hank Jennings. A boating enthusiast, Andrew named his 1936 Chris Craft Sportsman. I actually know what that boat actually looks like. He named it Josie. On September 27th, 1987, the boat exploded, leaving unidentifiable human remains. They don't go much into that. So I feel like there's a whole story right there. Because as we know, anticipating the attempt on his life by Thomas Eckhart, Packard managed to escape and go into hiding, with the town believing he had perished, which tells me, well, first it raises the question, who the hell's body parts did they find in that wreckage? And I'm assuming that they were planted there by Andrew himself. So I feel like there's a whole lot more story there, but we don't get those details. We got this much, though. After tracking Josie down to Twin Peaks, Eckhart traveled there with his assistant Jones in March of 1989. He called her wishing to meet with her, but Packard's sister, Catherine Martell, hopped on the line, welcoming him to Twin Peaks. He went to the Blue Pine Lodge, the home of the Martells and Josie. He and Catherine discussed his past with the Packards. After listening in on the conversation between Catherine and Josie about his apparent death, Andrew entered Catherine's office and commented that everything is going exactly as planned, and a trap had been set for Eckhart. Days later, Catherine revealed Andrew to her husband Pete, who was flabbergasted at his survival. Catherine and Andrew explained the latter's survival as his death was faked due to them foreseeing Eckhart's plan to murder him. Pete brought Andrew breakfast a couple of mornings. I mean, it goes into the details that we saw in the show. Later, in the shape of a dog's face, or pancakes in the shape of a dog's face, much to his amusement. Catherine, however, was not so amused. Pete brought salt and pepper, then left. Josie then arrived and fainted upon seeing Andrew, which I actually found to be a bit comical. I also had to consider, is it just that she was shocked to see him, afraid that he knew and so she was in trouble, or afraid because she had said she'd done the thing she said she was going to do but had apparently failed? All of those things could be in play. He later had a drink with Josie and revealed to her that he had long since forgiven her for his attempted murder, putting the blame on Eckhart, who he implored her to visit. He exited saying they would never speak again. Packard went to the Great Northern Hotel, where he revealed himself to Eckhart as being alive. He also warned him to be careful around Josie, who subsequently killed Eckhart and then died soon after. It does go into some of the odd circumstances around her death, but we kind of went into a great deal of discussion during that, at the end of that episode. In the following days, Catherine told Andrew about a box left by Eckhart's assistant Jones, which appeared to be a sort of puzzle box with an astrological code on it. He informed her that her investors from Ghostwood Development Project were on board, and he pointed to constellations on the box, putting in a sort of combination, revealing a smaller box, which he busted open with a rolling pin. Contained inside was a metallic box. It's a box inside of a box inside of a box. Uh-huh. Andrew and Pete attempted to open the final box the next day, but were unsuccessful until Packard angrily shot it with a revolver. Inside was a safety deposit box, which Catherine placed in a cake saver. Never really did understand the point of that. Now, backing up to address Hank Jennings. Hank was born as the sole child of Emil and Jolene Jennings. His father passed away during his adolescence due to a drunken accident with a beer brewing apparatus, and did not leave him with much aside from the bad reputation he himself had inherited from his father, Einar. I mentioned him last week. When it came to his mother, he was the proverbial apple of her eye, and her doting on him led him to develop a self-confidence that surpassed the borders of his actual qualities by a wide margin. By the way, I should point out that this particular segment was taken from notes written by Agent Cooper, and it really does come off as being in his voice. That's why I specifically quoted that last bit. In his youth, Hank was, in spite of his family's bad reputation, able to stay out of any serious trouble due to being in great physical shape and showing great competence and promise as an athlete. In high school, he worked at the Double R and was praised as a hero of the school's undefeated football team in 1968, on which he had the role of fullback and was on the starting lineup with Frank Truman, Harry Truman, Big Ed Hurley, Tommy Hawk Hill, Thad Toad Barker, and Jerry Horn, all members of the Bookhouse Boys. However, he made a deal with Jean Renault to toss the championship game against Kettle Falls. The spring after high school, Norma Lindstrom, whom Hank had briefly dated during junior year, cheated on Ed Hurley with Hank, resulting in Ed half drunkenly marrying Nadine Butler. Hank and Norma wed shortly thereafter and honeymooned in Hollywood, where they got tickets to The Tonight Show. He was good friends with fellow Bookhouse Boy Harry Truman, but at some point, due to his shoddy agenda, the friendship was terminated, as well as Hank's membership in the Bookhouse. The Andrew Packard case is the segment that comes from, as I said, from the notes of Dale Cooper. The Ballad of Big Ed and Norma Nadine, which is attributed to Hawk. Those are the two portions we're kind of looking at today. They give different background of Hank's marriage to Norma. After Ed Hurley was deployed in Saigon during the Vietnam War, Hank formed a bond with Norma, feigning sadness over Ed's absence. Meanwhile, Hank intercepted any letters written from Ed to Norma, ensuring she did not receive them. As Twin Peaks annual tree lighting ceremony that year, Hank proposed to Norma and she accepted. They were married at the chapel in the woods, I should say. The ceremony was attended by their family, but notably absent were the members of the Bookhouse Boys. The pair honeymooned in San Francisco and Los Angeles, and they attended the taping of The Tonight Show. I don't necessarily. Well, let me get back to that. Soon after marrying Norma, Hank began working for Jean Renault, spending much of his time away from home, causing him to miss his mother-in-law's funeral in 1984. So I don't think the two accounts are mutually exclusive. It did seem simplified in the show that, Ed got drunk, married Norma, it resulted in an accident where she lost an eye and, he didn't have the heart to annul it.
Right.
I do feel like maybe this is a little bit of a retcon on Mark Frost's part, but not egregiously so. It does seem like the two could actually be true. The whole Vietnam thing and the guy behind, moving in on his girl seems entirely plausible. That could have subsequently then resulted in the reason he got drunk and then got married to Nadine and, so forth. Anyway, just my thoughts on that possible resolution. So let's see. Okay. On September 27th, 1987, Hank was hired by Josie Packard to kill her husband, Andrew Packard, by making his boat, Chris and Josie, explode. She wanted him to blow up Josie. That's basically what she was saying. Anyway, he then committed vehicular manslaughter on a vagrant. See, there you go. To avoid investigation into Packard's apparent death. In prison, he met Ernie Niles. 1989, Hank met with his wife prior to his parole hearing and asked her to back him up so he could be released. This was actually, now we're kind of at, what we see in the show, insisting that he had changed. At his hearing, he insisted that the manslaughter incident was merely fate. Norma said that if he was released, he had a job opportunity at the Double R Diner. He later called Josie and asked if she received his message, a drawing of a domino he held in his hand. Having been granted parole, Hank stood at the jukebox of the Double R the next day. He then went to the booth and listened in on the conversation between James Hurley, Donna Hayward, and Maddie Ferguson. When Norma came into work with Shelley Johnson, he stopped her. He stated his intention to work his way back into her heart, and she gave him a job washing dishes. Later that night, Hank went to the Johnson home and beat up Leo and threatened him. In the morning, he told Shelley about his troubles in prison. When it came to his relationships from before, he then saw a lighter on the counter and pocketed it. Sheriff Truman then came in and told him the conditions of his parole, that he was to meet with his case officer every Friday. He was given $90,000 by Josie, a payment for the vagrant he killed, to get into prison for vehicular manslaughter to avoid investigation about the death of her husband, Andrew. He wanted more money, though she said they had an agreement. He cut their thumbs and pressed them together as their sign of being in a business together for life, which is I always thought was incredibly creepy. Agreeing to help Josie have Catherine Martell killed, he called Catherine for dinner, saying the ledger she was searching for was at the Packard sawmill, which was, he called her from the diner. I'm sorry, saying that the ledger was she was searching for was at the Packard sawmill, was due burn down that night. That's all, part of the Ghostwood thing. Might get into that later on. He went to Norma and talked about his uncomfortable mattress in prison and how he dreamed of her and hoped for a life with her and the diner. He later called Benjamin Horn, informing him that he was ready to take care of Leo Johnson. He went to Leo's home and shot him through the living room window. At the diner the next morning, he picked up knives from the table to be washed. Later, he asked Major Garland Briggs how his pie was, to which Biggs said exceptional. They shared a salute as the major left and Norma entered. He asked how Shelley was doing after being hospitalized for smoke inhalation, but Norma did not wish to speak. He later stood in front of Benjamin Horn's fireplace at the Great Northern Hotel as Horn entered with his brother. He told them that Josie left the previous night and confirmed Leo's condition being in a coma. He also said that Catherine was most likely dead within the rubble of the sawmill. The following day, Hank observed a buck head in Sheriff Truman's office, which, with the note, "The buck stopped here." He entered the FBI Special Agent Harry entered with FBI Special Agent Dale Cooper. Hank signed his parole form and left. A couple of days later, he approached Donna Hayward at the diner with a Meals on Wheels delivery. She said she would be having lunch with someone she met on her route and left. Norma then told him that restaurant critic M.T. Wentz was due to arrive in Twin Peaks. He took some money from the register to get things to spruce up the diner. A man arrived at the diner they believed to be Wentz. Norma seated him as Hank and Toad had Toad eat in the kitchen. He told him that the man only ordered a cheeseburger, which Hank supposed to be a trick. After leading the man to the bathroom, Hank got the man's jacket pocket and found that he was actually Washington State Prosecutor Daryl Lodwick. At night, Harry was visited by a man who roughed him up and referred to him as Blood Brother. Hank walked through the Great Northern the next day and went to Ben's office, but quickly left after finding him in a meeting. The businessman he was meeting with left, and Hank stuck his hand in to warn Ben that Cooper was on his way. After the agent left, Ben instructed him to follow Cooper and retrieve his daughter Audrey from One-Eyed Jack's. I'd forgotten how complicated his story was, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
We saw it on the show. Remember that? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm bringing these
clearing
all
it up
because it's basically, it's unless you go through it, because you're seeing all of these different scenes all completely separately. You don't watch them, for example, from Hank's point of view.
Oh.
And this is kind of giving it from Hank's point of view, which is exactly what the dossier does. Each little bit is a narrative, so you get the background and the full context of the characters. Let's see. At dinner with Norma, Vivian, and Vivian's husband, Ernie Niles, the two women excused themselves from the table, and the men discussed their history together as criminals. Believing that Ernie was only with Vivian for the money, Hank was surprised to find that he had changed his ways. When the women came back, he made a toast to Vivian and Ernie. Excuse me, a little hiccup there. Following Leland Palmer's funeral several days later, Hank attended the reception at the Palmer house, the Palmer home, excuse me, a little Chicago slip of the tongue there, Palmer house. Leland had died in custody after being arrested for the murder of his daughter. He saw Ed and Norma speaking as he brought out food for Leland's widow, Sarah Palmer. During a hunting trip, Hank went to the office at One-Eyed Jack's with Ernie and two girls. They dismissed the girls and discussed their future business until Jean Renault entered. Ernie was set as the new broker, and Hank took him to the casino. After their hunting trip, Hank and Ernie went to the diner. He brought them some food. He brought some food for them, and they prepared for their drug delivery for the Renaults. Hank went to Ben Horn's office where he was watching films on a projector. Horn explained that Catherine still lived and that he had been brought in for questioning in the Laura Palmer case until Leland Palmer confessed and died in custody. Hank told Ben that he no longer owned One-Eyed Jack's, and he then worked for Jean Renault. The next day, he spotted Norma and Ed holding hands. The day after this, he saw Norma getting ready to leave the diner and asked where she was going. She responded that she was off to run errands and that leaving him there with the breakfast crowd would be sort of a test for him. Hank ambushed Ed, who he had caught with Norma at the Hurley home, and punched him. However, as he beat him, Nadine came and attacked Hank, easily taking him down. During his hospital visit, which he had claimed was both because of having a tree fall on him and that he had gotten hit by a bus, that if that's what you have to do to cover getting beat up by Nadine, he was charged with various parole violations by Deputy Hawk. On crutches and escorted by Hawk, he went to Sheriff Truman's office, who specified his parole violations, including the attempted murder of Leo Johnson. He offered to trade information on who murdered Andrew Packard, but the offer was shot down. However, he hinted that it was Truman's lover, Josie. He mocked the sheriff, and Hank kicked out one of his crutches, causing him to fall. He was then escorted out. Later, Hank sat in his cell at the station, and Norma came in to ask him for a divorce. He begged her to testify an alibi for him regarding the night he shot Leo, but she refused, and he refused the divorce. She declared, "I'd rather be his whore than your wife." That's right. Yeah. And Hank angrily screamed for her. Hank was returned to prison to serve 25-year sentence in Walla Walla for his parole violations, which included drug trafficking, assault, and attempted murder. In 1992, he was fatally knifed in the prison weight room by a distant cousin of the Renault family. He confessed on his deathbed to fixing the football game and to being involved in the, in quotes, murder of Andrew Packard. His death marked the end of the Jennings bloodline. Now, quick rewind to talk about Norma. Norma was the high school sweetheart to Ed Hurley, but in 1969, the spring after graduation, she cheated on him with Hank Jennings one weekend. So he decided to marry Nadine Butler while in a partially inebriated state. Again, my supposition is that cheating happened while he was in Vietnam. There's no reason to believe, that's not compatible with this particular narrative. Norma quickly married Hank in April and then honeymooned in Hollywood, and they got tickets to the Tonight Show. Also that month, she began working at the Double R Diner. She graduated from Twin Peaks Community College, earning a degree in home economics. Also in 1969, Norma won the first annual Miss Twin Peaks contest. The Andrew Packard case, the Ballad of Big Ed and Norma the Ballad of Big Ed and Norma and Nadine offers an alternate story behind Ed and Norma's relationship. We talked about that already. Immediately following high school, when Ed left for deployment during the Vietnam War, the two began regularly exchanging letters. Meanwhile, Norma attended community college and formed a bond with Hank Jennings over their supposed mutual sadness over Ed's. Okay, I've already covered this. At Twin Peaks, and well, is there any greater detail here? They married at the chapels, the honeymoon in San Francisco. After the honeymoon, Norma returned to work on her degree in nursing, but ultimately dropped out to run the Double R Diner after her father became ill with heart disease. A year after Ed returned from Saigon, he stopped in at the diner and the pair engaged in an awkward conversation until Hawk decided to intervene. But from this point, Ed began regularly visiting the diner. One night after Ed married Nadine Gertz, he visited Norma at the Double R, and the two had a more heartfelt conversation than their previous talks since Ed's return. Ed, distraught over Norma not responding to his letters, prompted Norma to figure out Hank's deception years before. Ed began to visit the diner more regularly, and the two would often hold long conversations. Real quick, I want to note that I really do feel like this narrative kind of does soften the whole what would otherwise be a rather torrid love affair. I mean, it kind of always was, but you kind of understand how they got to where they were, and you feel even a little bit more sympathy for them, I think. I feel like that's the intent. That's how I feel about it anyway. In August of 1987, Norma began Meals on Wheels service at the Double R Diner with the help of high school student Laura Palmer. In September of that year, Hank was convicted for vehicular manslaughter, so she and Ed began an affair. While working the counter at the Double R on a day in February 1989, Ed and Nadine came in for coffee. Upon seeing Norma, Nadine became angry and dragged Ed right back out, though not before Ed and Norma shared a look of longing. Norma asked waitress Shelley Johnson to help Laura load up for the Meals on Wheels delivery, as another waitress, Heidi, was suffering from a bloody nose. When When Shelley came back inside to tell Nora that Laura ran away, they noticed the entire diner was empty. Norma and Shelley covered Laura's route, that then sat down in one of the booths and cried. Ed came back in and went to her, and they planned to get together. Later, Norma and Ed sat in a truck listening to music and discussing their relationship. On the morning of February 24th, Norma poured Bobby Briggs a cup of coffee after he commented to late to work Heidi that he thought Germans were always on time. Norma told him that she thought he only cared about making time. Bobby left with Shelley. Let's see. Laura was later found murdered, deeply affecting the entire town. In the evening, Norma met with Ed. They discussed their feelings for each other and her intention to leave Hank. Norma went to the Twin Peaks General Store the next day and encountered Nadine, who had bought cotton balls to make a drape runner silent. Yes, I agree. Ed and Norma were the best. I did like the resolution of their storyline.
And welcome to the show, Burley Sullivan. Thank you.
Absolutely. Later at the diner, Norma served a cherry pie to FBI Special Agent Dale Cooper, whom she was introduced to by Sheriff Harry S. Truman as having taken over the investigation of Laura's death. Of course, Cooper asked about the Meals on Wheels program as part of the investigation. Ed came to the diner the following day to serve, and she served him hot coffee. He said that he was in trouble with Nadine for ruining her drape runners. When Audrey Horn arrived later, she served her a cup of coffee as well. She discussed Hank's probable release the next day with the parole officer, who said that he had been a model prisoner. She said that she could provide him with a job and at the diner if he were to be released. Norma later attended Laura's funeral, and in the evening she served Agent Cooper a slice of huckleberry pie with vanilla ice cream and coffee. She met with Hank before his hearing was to take place, and he insisted that he had changed. At the hearing, Norma said that she would give Hank a job at the diner. I felt like this scene, I think, is a little bit more important than we gave it credit for when we watched it on the show. When Shelley arrived at work, the two discussed their respective relationship problems and their plans to deal with them. She then offered to Shelley's a beauty day for the two of them. She then received a call from Hank's parole officer informing her that he would be released. The reason I think that that's so important is because there is you do see common threads, right? In fact, if we drop back a second, and I kind of allude to this with the thumbnail, you've got two stories of love triangles, right? You've got Eckhart, Packard, and Josie on the one side. You've got two triangles, depending on how you look at it. Nadine, Norma, and Ed, Hank, and Norma. So, I mean, I don't know. The themes, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. Yeah, it parallels. That's a very Lynchian kind of thing to do. She met with Hank before. Oh yeah, I told you about that. Norma went to Ed's gas station the following day to inform him that Hank would be returning. They both discussed their difficulties to tell their respective spouses their wishes to separate from them, and agreed to not call each other for a while. After a day of beauty with Shelley. She came into work with her and was stopped by Hank. Then released, he stated his intentions to repair their relationship, and she gave him a job washing dishes. For the next couple days, she heard Hank talk about his sorrows in prison, including his lumpy mattress, dreaming about her night after night. He spoke of his hope to make a life with her at the diner, and Norma was very reluctant. At the diner the next day, she delivered a note to Donna Hayward, and then invited Shelley, and then visited Shelley in the hospital. This is, after the smoke inhalation, promising to bring her food due to the hospital's lack of anything good. She went by Nadine's room, where she saw Ed holding his comatose wife's hand after her attempted overindulgence of sleeping pills.
Yes.
Norma went back to the diner where Hank asked about Shelley, but Norma said she could not talk. She then received a call from Donna, who wished to pick up Laura's Meals on Wheels route. Margaret Lanterman entered the diner the next day, and Norma greeted her, pouring her a cup of coffee. She requested that Margaret dispose of her gum in a more respectful manner than she had, having recently stuck it to the diner wall.
I remember that.
Yes. Norma talked on the phone at the diner a couple of days later with Louis at the Great Northern Hotel, who informed her that restaurant critic M.T. Wentz would be coming to Twin Peaks. Hank took some money from the register. There's going to be overlap in my notes here. Shelley tearfully told Norma a few days later that she would have to quit her job to take care of Leo, who had become an invalid after being shot through the spine. Norma reassured her that the diner would be fine without her, and that she would be welcome back whenever she was ready. Ed and Nadine then entered, the latter having reverted to a 18-year-old state of mind. A milkshake was brought out to Nadine, and she broke the glass with her grip. And I don't know if you guys remember those glass milkshake glasses that they used to have at diners like that.
Yes.
That was thick glass.
Yeah, she would have them very strong.
What they did is they probably made a sugar glass.
Yes, they absolutely did.
And that's
and then the Foley artist puts the sound in, of course. Yeah. Norma's stepmother, Vivian, made a surprise visit to the diner and introduced her to her new husband, Ernie Niles. Her stepmother and stepfather then left for their room at the Great Northern, and Norma found a newspaper where Ernie wrote $1,000 Houston by 3 points, and came to the diner after being absent for 48 hours, which frustrated her. At dinner with her stepmother, Ernie and Hank, she excused herself from the table for a moment, and her stepmother joined her. When they returned, Hank made a toast to Vivian and Ernie. The next day, Norma's stepmother was disgusted by the omelet she had been served and suggested to Norma a new recipe. After the funeral of Leland Palmer, Norma attended the reception at the Palmer home. Leland, we know about Leland. She later took away the tablecloths from the diner table following a negative review from M.T. Wentz. Her stepmother questioning this and revealing that she had been the critic. The following day, Norma served a slice of pie to FBI Special Agent Roger Hardy, who said that he had heard much about it since Cooper's time in the town. Hank then came to the diner with Ernie after a hunting trip. She told Ernie that her stepmother had returned to Seattle and that he should do the same. Of course, we got a lot more detail about the couple in the final dossier. A day later, she and Ed reminisced about when they made life plans together when they were young. Then the following morning, I just realized I have way too much written here. She went to Ed's house to express her love for him and her wish to be with Ed, and they kissed. She later left after Donna came searching for Ed's nephew, James. The following day, Norma brought extra potatoes out to Ed, who was having a discussion with Dr. Will Hayward. After the doctor left, she went to tell Ed about Hank being in the hospital from having a tree fall on him, though Ed clarified that Hank had actually been beaten up by Nadine. She told him that Hank would be charged with a parole violation, and Ed called for a celebration, not caring who found out about their relationship. In the morning, Nora laid awake in bed with Ed, talking about the 20 years that it's passed since they had been separated. Nadine came in, breaking the door off of its hinges on her way in. She got into bed and told them about her disqualification from the wrestling tournament and apologized to Norma for beating up Hank. Nadine got up to leave and told them that she knew about their relationship. I wonder if seeing them in bed together was a clue. That it made her feel better about her relationship with Mike Nelson. Norma later cleaned up at the diner as Shelley came, having been attacked by the then mobile Leo. Shelley asked for her job back, and Norma was happy to oblige. Sheriff Truman then took Norma aside to tell her that Hank would be put in jail for the attempted murder of Leo and his previous parole violations. The next day, Norma talked on the phone with her sister Annie, who was to arrive in Twin Peaks the following day. After leaving the convent, she found an envelope with Shelley's name on it and gave it to her. Inside, Shelley found part of a poem and an invitation to the Roadhouse later that night. Ed then came into the diner and took her in his arms, asking her to marry him. She went to Hank's cell, asking for a divorce. If he said he wouldn't unless she was his alibi. She greeted Annie when she arrived at the diner the next morning and introduced her to Shelley. She later showed an advertisement for the Miss Twin Peaks contest to Shelley, who did not wish to compete. Norma made pies for the contest, for which she had signed up as a judge. She told Shelley and Annie that she expected to see one of them win the title of Miss Twin Peaks, which she had won 20 years prior. Later, alongside the other judges, Mayor Dwayne Milford and Dick Tremaine, she observed Tim Pinkle teaching choreography to the contestants. She turned their attention from them, trying to determine the qualities they were looking for in Miss Twin Peaks, believing the major factor to be originality. At the Hurley home, Nadine showed Norma, Ed, Mike, and Dr. Lawrence Jacoby some of her wrestling highlights. Jacoby said that he had gathered them together as he believed divorce was easier when all parties involved could state their feelings. Ed told Nadine that he and Norma were planning to marry, and she announced that she and Mike would be doing the same. After Annie was named Miss Twin Peaks, chaos ensued at the contest. Back at the Hurley home after the chaos, Dr. Hayward patched up Nadine and Mike, the former having hit his head, having been hit in the head by a sandbag. Nadine came to, having apparently returned to her adult state of mind and questioning why Norma was there. As Shelley and Bobby married in 1990, Norma and Betty Briggs co-signed a loan for the young couple to purchase their first home. As late as 2016, Norma still owned the Double R, which she had turned into a franchise called Norma's Double R, though the original diner still remains simply Double R Diner. She also owned Sweet Loaf Bakery, which Shelley's daughter Becky worked. One day, as she was sorting through business documents, she watched as Becky came into the diner and asked her mother for money. Norma noted to Shelley that this was the third time in 2 weeks and urged Shelley to help her daughter rather than enable her. After Becky took Shelley's car armed with a gun, Shelley called Norma, who suggested she call Bobby later. As Shelley, Bobby, and Becky discussed Becky's situation with her husband, Steve, Norma listened in and silently prodded Becky to apologize to Shelley. She later had dinner with Ed, and they were joined by Bobby until Walter Lawford, Norma's romantic and business partner, joined her to discuss business. Walter shared with Norma the profit reports of Norma's Double R franchise. He also gave her business advice for the flagship diner, which Norma disagreed with, wishing to stick with her traditional practice and pie recipe ingredients. Later, Ed came to the diner again, telling Norma that circumstances had changed and they could be together. However, Norma apologized to him as she was to meet with Walter. She advised Walter to buy her out and take over the franchise and leave her with the flagship diner, where she had found a family. Baffled, Walter left, telling Norma that she was making a mistake. She joined Ed, who asked her to marry him. They embraced with a kiss, and Norma accepted his proposal. Not long after that, Ed and Nadine got married. Ed's nephew James played a song he wrote on his guitar during a civil ceremony conducted by the big log near the old train station. All of their friends, half of the town, including Andy and Hawk, were in attendance. Oof, that's a lot.
Would have liked to have seen them get married.
I know, and especially the way it's described, I could totally picture. Well, let's face it. I mean, I've talked to you guys about how we've actually been to Snoqualmie and North Bend. We've been to those filming locations, so I could totally picture being there at the big log that they're talking about at the train station, and witnessing that. Yeah. That was a lot. Although I went through it very, very quickly and I ended up skimming a lot. Those notes were about twice as long as what I went through yesterday, or last week.
Yeah.
And since we're kind of finishing up here on the Norma portion, and we've just touched on Annie Blackburn. That's another reason I think this is actually a good segue into maybe next week, looking at starting I had suggested before, maybe we turn it into a 3-week thing, because it's a 3-hour movie, I guess you would call it. So we could treat it as a 3-episode mini-series.
Like do it in 3 parts?
What do you think, Deleted?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like a whole. I mean, it's a mini series. It's not a full on series, but it's more than a movie, I think. So I think that works pretty good. And unless I'm mistaken, all 4 of us have yet to see Queen of Hearts. Am I correct?
I've not seen it.
I haven't. No.
Okay, so this time through, we will all be watching it together. And I am inclined to suggest that we do it kind of the old-fashioned way, in the pre-Cosme way, where everybody goes over to the YouTube channel and we all press play together. Reason being, this would give Cameron that much more watch time on the video.
We can include links in the descriptions and at the top.
Absolutely, we'll pin the link, and I'll have it in the description and the whole bit, so that we can do that, and then we can reach out to Cameron and see if he'd like to come on and do a little chit chat with us for the 4th week. And then by that time, maybe I'll have a more succinct second half or third half, whatever, of the secret history of Twin Peaks ready to go for you.
Cool. I like it.
Yeah, I do feel like, although I did go over a lot of stuff we already knew, I feel like a lot of those details get easily lost, because sometimes that stuff that happens off screen, it's stuff that's only referred to by a line, like Hank killing the vagrant, because he needed to be, he needed an alibi so that he couldn't be investigated for the death of Andrew Packard, but at the same time, it's I guess vehicular manslaughter is a much lesser charge than murder, so there is a certain logic to that. But there you go. This is completely off topic from what we were talking about well, it's not completely off topic. I mean, we're still talking about Twin Peaks, but it's not about the characters we were talking about here. One of the things that Cameron mentioned, a little detail I had forgotten. See, like I say, even when you watch the shows a number of times, you still forget details, right? Forgetting the fact that Janie E. and Diane were sisters, and the character Nido, who filters into our world from the lodge or whatever, her name backwards, of course, is Diane without the E, right? But Janie E has that E initial, like it's the leftover E from Nido or something like that. And I had never pieced that together before, but I found that to be an interesting corollary. Don't know if it's intentional or not, but it seems to be.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah. So there you go. That's that brings us up to date on the two. Well, I realize there are a number of there's actually quite a few love triangles. We have I mentioned Eckhart, Packard, and Josie. We had
Norma, Big Ed, and Nadine.
Right. We also had Hank, Ed, and Norma.
You got Bobby,
Laura, and James.
Oh, I was actually thinking
Bobby, Shelley, and Leo. Yes, exactly right. Good.
Don't forget about Cooper and his ex-partner and his wife.
Cooper and Wyndham Earl and Caroline. Yes.
Yep.
Yes. So you're starting to see the resonance here. And this is too many. I mean, yes, you could say there's plenty of people out there cheating on other people, but there just seems to be too many for it to be coincidence. It does kind of lend itself to, and I'm not being too fine a point on this. I'm not being too literal about this, but the supposition that maybe all of these characters are all characters in a dream and the dreamer is maybe Laura, maybe it's Dale, you know, who knows? But yeah, so just my thoughts on that. So, but yeah.
What did you learn deleted scenes?
Well, I think going back to season 3, I think my whole problem with it is that I always wanted to believe that
season 3, The Return.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
What we are seeing in the first 2 seasons, we're seeing things that are actually happening in the real world.
Right.
Obviously, some supernatural things going on, but season 3 would imply that it is all happening within a dream, and one of the characters is dreaming it. But I don't want to think of it that way. I want to think of it as what we're seeing is happening.
That's fine. I can offer you an alternate theory.
Please do.
That I just stumbled on based on, well, at least partially based on something Cameron said in his most recent video. So again, he and his guest were talking about the time travel element, right? Of Dale going back in time, trying to save Laura. And it seems to be on a recurring loop. A loop in which the Dougie character is kind of separated from his primary consciousness. He's operating on a kind of sleepwalking, right? And so it's very clear he's probably done this a number of times. And so all those times where Dougie is like he drops something and goes to pick it up just when the bullet comes through, or all the just random coincidences, or like the hello, right? And he's winning at all of the Mr. One-Armed Bandit or Mr. Jackpot. It's maybe not so much a message to him from the fireman, so much it's him having a kind of memory of the last loop through, right? Think about the Groundhog's Day idea, right? Where, Phil is starting to, he waits, he sees them put down the money, he picks up the money, he dodges the car, he leaps over the puddle.
He saves the kid from falling out.
Saves the kid from falling.
He never thanks him.
Right. Exactly. And he's always because he knows everything that's going to happen. It becomes almost second nature. The same thing seems to be happening for Dougie, who is. He isn't waking up, right? The fireman keeps telling him, wake up, right? And it's very clear that this is a hit you over the head illusion, right? Because this is the same guy who loves coffee, right? He loves coffee. He's constantly drinking coffee. Coffee is part of the morning ritual to wake up. You're not yourself without your coffee, right? You're going through the motions like a zombie when you haven't had your coffee. But there are certain things that even in your haze, you are able to do. You won't remember how you did it, but you did. That could very well be the case. So, and I'm getting to the dream part. I'll address that in a second. But you can think of it as this time loop situation. Think of it as multiple timelines. Think of it as alternate realities, however you want to look at it. It's very clear that even if you take it at pure face value and that the story of Twin Peaks is just one linear storyline, it's clearly in an alternate universe because the real world, there is no real world town of Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks is really an amalgamation of North Bend, Washington, and Snoqualmie, Washington, and different various locations in and around Los Angeles, all set in the northeast corner of Washington, where in the real world there's just a lot of forest and mountains, you know. So so clearly that's, you know, but then you start talking about the vortices around the world that you see in season 3, and not to mention even the extraplanar, you know, White Lodge, Black Lodge, and so forth. Elements relating to aliens and so forth. What?
Weird things that crawl in people's mouths.
Well, yes. Those almost Lovecraftian elements, right?
Weird
Judy
stuff.
and Bob and all of that kind of stuff, and how they seem to impact the religions of the Native Americans and so forth. So here's my suggestion. I think, keeping in mind that David Lynch was transcendentalist, right? He studied transcendental meditation. He had his theories about consciousness, the dream and the waking world. And more people are starting to talk about the nature of what we've always called the supernatural, right? This idea that the consciousness, even secularists now are starting to talk about the idea that consciousness continues after death because of people who have had near-death experiences, people that have you know, had visions and so forth. They things that happen to people as they're dying, if they come back and talk about their near-death experience, how similar that is to people that have taken certain mind-altering drugs and what their experiences have been. So this whole nature of consciousness, right? From a transcendentalist perspective, is it not plausible that consciousness in the physical realm is a temporary thing, just like religious people believe in that you go on to another existence? This concept of there being alternate, infinite alternate realities and so forth, that may or may not be accessible through non-physical means. You know, you hear about people making you know the Mandela thing, you know, slipping into other universes and you know, alternate times, and you know, again, these are all conspiracy theorists and stuff that you could find on the Y files and stuff like that. But there's stories about people that, you know, wake up one morning and they're not wearing the same pajamas that they did the night before. They get to their job and they find out that their office has been moved. They're in a different position and whatnot. And some people don't remember them, but other people that they've never spoken to do remember them. And, you know, obviously these things can't be corroborated. These are all people's personal stories that, who knows, they could be making up to sell a book, or you never know, right?
Right.
Excuse me.
So
that's a distinct possibility too. All of the dreaming elements, you know, could very, very easily be very real, being experienced as dreams. And in fact, not that I would ever, you know, think to give anyone homework and say, now go check this out. But I am going to say to Deleted Scenes, because I know he'll probably do this anyway, even without me saying it, go check out Cameron's most recent video that I've talked about, I don't know, like 4 times tonight, and kind of see if you don't kind of get some of the same thoughts when you see it, you know. But go. Troy, the New England Journal of Medicine released their findings after a 54-year study, and every single school shooter was on some form of antidepressant. Well, there's that element too. That the whole idea about the way drugs affect. Look, just talking about brain chemistry. There's a now it's a very famous video. A clip from an interview that Tom Cruise had with, I don't remember who it was, where he was talking about the pharmaceutical industry and mood-altering drugs and whatnot. And this was all stuff that I said back then when I was in college. I majored in psychology. And the more I was finding out about where we really are in the science of brain chemistry, the more I realized that this was charlatanism. This was pseudoscience. Even at the universities, they were calling psychology a soft science. When someone calls it a soft science, that means it ain't science. Okay, it's pseudoscience. And I realized that, and then I start looking into. I didn't just drop out of college just because I got disillusioned. I was like, well, maybe I need to go into psychiatry. Maybe I need to get my medical degree. And so I moved over to a biology focus and started talking to my counselor about going into medicine. But then as I started doing a little bit of research on psychiatry, I realized it wasn't much better. We don't really understand how the brain and consciousness works at all to be prescribing the kind of drugs that we are. What Tom Cruise had said was actually 100% correct. These aren't fixing imbalances any more than fixing the 4 humors did anything. It's little more than chemical straitjackets. And then I started to realize, we're prescribing these chemical straitjackets for perfectly normal kids, just to keep them quiet and put them in front of the TV so mom and dad could do whatever it is they wanted to do. And the classroom would be a little bit more orderly for the overworked teacher. And so I kind of got off on a little bit of a tangent there, but we don't understand the human consciousness. The brain in the jar analogy is, I think, very apt for where we still are in understanding the human mind, and the idea that there is something after this, I think, is becoming more and more universal. Even the secularists are starting to say, yeah, it seems like there's something. And I definitely know that this is what David Lynch believed. And I feel that when you understand that, and you look at some of his other works, and then you look back at Twin Peaks, maybe it's not as simple as just a dream. A dream isn't just a dream to David Lynch. The dream world is as real to a transcendentalist as the waking world. If you start looking at the Aboriginal beliefs of the Native Australians, their concept of the dream world is that it literally is another life you live when your conscious mind is asleep. And the reason things are so weird and strange over there is because you have a hard time remembering your waking life. And when you're awake, you have a hard time remembering your dream life. And I would posit to you, think about your dreams, some of the weird dreams you've had. were they really as vivid as you remember them being, or are you just kind of filling in the blanks after the fact because you're having a hard time remembering them? Sometimes I think we do that. Anyway.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I think so. But I'm sorry. I have again droned on for over an hour and monopolized the whole show.
Well, I can tell you one thing.
What's that?
Anyone that actually wants to live in Twin Peaks, basically Snoqualmie.
Yes.
There's a house for sale there in Snoqualmie, Pass, Washington for $139,000. It's this cute little cabin, kind of like the one that Cooper came across that he had wanted to buy. Isn't it cute?
Oh, gosh, it really is kind of nice and rustic. Yeah, but I would never live in that state. Not with the way things are right now. Not with the lawsuit that I'm following.
Wait, hold on. I'm going to get the link. And I'm going to
drop it in the chat so people can take a look at it.
Yes, but we got 4 chats. So, okay. So I just dropped it in deleted. Give me a second. Why isn't this going up? Okay. I just dropped it in Troy's.
I was going to say, if you drop it in private chat, I could drop it in all 4 at once.
Oh, too late.
Yeah, you already got it.
I already got all 4. Okay. So I dropped it in all 4 chats. It's a really cute little place. So if you actually want to live in Twin Peaks.
In fact, if Charlotte Nightstar happens to catch this on the rewatch, maybe you can go check it out because I know you live in that area. Might be something to look at.
Yeah, it's like I belong to I got a newsletter that's called Cheap Old Houses. And so they send me emails with cheap old houses. And some of them are super cute. I mean, I found one in Texas that I want to buy.
Well, see, I'll tell you, I see a house like this. It really is kind of cool. Check it out, guys. I see it. And I go, God, I would.
If you click on the link,
I would love to.
I can't
live there.
afford it, but I like it.
We could probably swing it, but the problem is, yeah, I know what the taxes are like there. I know what the laws are like there. There's a lot of things I don't like. I would never live in Washington. It's beautiful. It's a wonderful place to visit. I would not want to live there.
Well, I'm also looking at where it's situated. It seems to be at like the top of like a mountainy area.
Which looks absolutely beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. But then you get torrential rains or something, there goes your house down the side.
Well, yeah, you'd have to have a land survey and evaluate that. That's true.
But it's a cute little place.
Really,
I mean, especially
really
if you like rustic.
Yeah.
You can see pictures.
And I'm telling you guys, Starlink is getting better and better. You know, that, you want to get out away from everything, but still have internet connection. You can do that. Especially in the Northern Hemisphere. So something to consider. But I don't know. I'm starting to look at Tennessee more and more. The more I hear Culture talk about it, the more I see why he likes it there.
Well, I'm going to end up with a Southern accent then.
That's fine. I can live with it.
I lived in Kentucky with my ex for about 8 months while he had to do his officer's basic course at Fort Knox. And about 2 or 3 days after we got there, I developed a Southern accent. I could not get rid of it until maybe about a month or 2 after we got back to Chicago area. It drove him nuts because he doesn't like the fact that I would pick up accents really fast and they'll stay with me. And then it was like, it would be a lot stronger. Like they would really stay with me for a lot longer. I don't think I drive Troy crazy with that. Even if I go into my Scottish.
Well, I actually know we're getting off topic. Sorry, guys. But Netter and I have been talking about where we would like to move to. One of the places we've looked at is Texas. We're starting to look at Tennessee. She said, put together a list for me of things that are important to you, that we need to look at. Things like, property tax, sales tax.
No HOA.
Yeah, right. What are the 2A laws like and so forth. And I said, well, the other thing we got to consider is, for example, looking at Tennessee, there's 5 dry counties in Tennessee. Don't want to move to one of those counties, I mean,
yeah, because then last call would be
I know.
last soda pop.
Yeah, right.
Soda pop.
Can't drink soda too late. Exactly. But anyway. But that's
and if you actually want to see a bunch of really inexpensive houses, the site is called Cheap Old Houses. Let's see. Do I have a... Yeah, cheapoldhouses.com. Like, all together is one word. And you can subscribe to our newsletters, and you can get cheap old farms, cheapish old houses, cheap old houses. They've got like 4 different newsletters. And it's like $12 to get all of them. I don't subscribe to any of the newsletters except for the free one that I get, but yeah. So like weekly, you can get free eye candy.
Free eye candy, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta show Troy the place I found in Temple, Texas. It's only $180,000. 3 bedrooms, 1 bath.
Yeah. So Tennessee has 95 counties, and one of them, Hancock County, is completely a dry county. The consolidated city-county government of Lynchburg, Moore County, is partially dry, despite being the home of Jack Daniel's Distillery. That boggles my mind. Blute, Crockett, Sevier, Stewart, and Weakley are considered moist counties. I don't like the sound of that. Some municipalities within these counties, however, allow sale of liquor by the drink and retail package stores. Yeah, see, I'm very libertarian. I don't like restrictions on what I can and can't buy and where I can.
Then you never want to live in Elizabethtown, Kentucky, because that's a dry county.
Yeah. And there's 5 counties in Texas that are dry counties. And how did we get on this topic? Anyway.
Talking about Twin
Peaks, and I found the Snoqualmie house.
Exactly. So, moving on.
So you got Blake 7 tonight, right?
I do. Right after this, with in the aftermath of Gann's death, we are seeing how the Liberator is faring, and Travis goes on trial. That's the name of the episode, Trial.
Cool.
Fine with Dry County now these days just means they don't sell alcohol or serve it on Sunday. Yeah, that's right. You just have to go outside of the county, buy your booze, and but the other thing I have to look at is, can you have stuff shipped in? Like here in Illinois, for a while, we were not able to have alcohol that we bought from, say, California shipped here to Illinois. And I had to have, I am not even joking. This is not a joke. I am being literally serious. The blood wine, the Klingon blood wine that we got from Star Trek Wines, we had to have shipped to a friend in Wisconsin and then meet up with them to bring it home to Chicago. Yeah. We couldn't have it shipped directly here. So I literally said I had to have it smuggled across the neutral zone in order to get
Funny.
it.
It's reminding me of Smokey and the Bandit.
Kind of. Not that it was illegal for me to bring it across the state lines. It was just illegal for the U.S. Postal Service to deliver it to me across state lines, which makes zero sense to me. But Illinois. That is no longer true, however. I can now order, for example, when I ordered the Romulan ale, ironically, that did not have to be smuggled across.
Well, wasn't it also a different company?
Actually, it may have been. I may have been mistaken about, but again, it was the shipping into Illinois, so it would have been whichever company I went with. But anyway, Anyway, I'm done. I'm done. Yes. Blake 7, and that's all I have to say about that. If you're on my channel, you will be forwarded there when we end here. Same on Netter's channel.
I have a question for Steven. Was there a David Lynch thing at the Oscars at all? Like in remembrance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he made it in. Okay. Of course, there were several controversial omissions.
Oh.
As seems to be a bit of a norm of late. Perhaps that's something you could look into for Geeky Geezers.
I'll think about that. Thank you.
Yeah. Because they like I said, they were, and it's happened before, but they did leave several people out. Tony Todd, which is the one that probably upsets me the most.
Wow, I'm surprised they didn't put him on.
Man.
Okay.
Alain Delon was not in there.
Right.
Bernard Hill, come on, Theoden people, come on.
Yeah.
Not in there. Shannon Doherty was left out. Olivia Hussey was left out.
This is weird. Who's
Yeah.
running
Actually,
over there?
I think I know why Elizabeth Hussey was left out. I think it was because of the Me Too related lawsuit that she brought.
Yeah.
People have problems with people that make problems by calling them out on their bad behavior.
You can just see how the ratings were.
I've heard some people say it was up from last year. I've heard others say lowest ever.
So no one knows.
I think it's probably somewhere in the middle, I would think.
Okay.
Interesting.
But the Oscars are well on the way of most of the other award shows now of winding up on streaming, or there's always Viewmaster.
Right.
But Conan did fine, he for the most part, everybody was kind of non-political.
I heard even Mark Hamill was non-political and managed to keep his pants on.
Yeah.
So
but you have the main issue of most people not even hearing of the nominated films, so that's not going to help.
Well, and considering most of the films that really deserve to win were not even eligible, just saying.
Yeah, but I mean, here's the thing about that, okay? Most Oscar telecasts, there's maybe a dozen movies that get nominations on a whole. A lot of those movies we're not getting in regardless. I'm not defending the whole DEI thing. No. There was a YouTuber who was upset that, Reagan got left out because it was on that list. Reagan's not getting any nominations with these people, regardless.
No, they're not going to do anything with Reagan.
They're not going to nominate Dennis Quaid for anything. They would have by now. Number one, and now that he's kind of outed himself as a conservative, so to speak, and he's doing commercials talking about let's take Hollywood out of Hollywood. They're not going to nominate him for anything.
One of the movies he was in was nominated for Best Picture. That was The Substance.
Yeah, but he wasn't nominated. So that's the thing.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Interesting. I've seen The Substance. Interesting film. Goes a little over the top. It's about 20 minutes too long, but it's fine. Another thing that the Oscars never did, very rarely, if ever, does, is the they do not nominate genre films. You know, Dune getting in is a fluke. The Substance getting in is a fluke.
Remember they used to nominate... I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, they used to nominate comedies, but they don't do that anymore. Yeah.
No, very rarely. And even then, usually if it's Woody Allen or Mel Brooks, and that's about it, you know.
Right.
You know, and I think this, to bring it back to the In Memoriam, if you notice, a lot of the people that they left out were sort of our people, you know, the genre actors. They got left out. And don't think we don't know why that happened. Because, like I said, the Oscars does not like science fiction. They don't like horror. They don't like fantasy. They don't like the stuff we like. They like the stuff that they want us to watch. And some of it's good. They got it right last year with Oppenheimer. But it's a rarity nowadays. You don't see, for example, something like Star Wars getting nominated for Best Picture. That wouldn't happen today. Yeah, they'll nominate David Lynch. They don't nominate his movies. There has to be a change. But, you know, we don't get to decide, you know. I was discussing this the other night with Sin when we were doing a post-mortem show. You know, if it was up to her, me, or Joe Average on the street, that would be a very different list of nominees than what we got. You know, and this is, you know, kind of the problem, is that people don't see these movies that they nominate, and they don't nominate what the people want to see. There's a disconnect. So eventually we're going to have to meet in the middle. But, you know, we can't take all the steps ourselves. They got to come to us too. And I think that's going to take some time. We'll see. But anyway, hey, you know, we're still here, and I think more people probably watch YouTube now, certainly than most of the streaming services, and probably movies. So, all right, let's let the people know what we have coming up. Netter.
Well, let's see. Right after this, I will be on Last Call, co-hosting for another exciting episode of Like 7. Wednesday, of course, there's nothing. Thursday, on Thursday Things, it'll just be me and Troy shooting the breeze. Let's see. And then Friday, I'll be co-hosting with Troy on Last Call. Saturday, we'll be over on Big Al's channel for the movie rewatch, and I'm drawing a blank on which movie that is. Do you recall?
The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms.
There we go. We're going to be seeing beasts. Yeah, that's...
Or it is the Beast, right? Or is it creature? Something from 20,000.
Beast.
Yeah.
Beast.
Okay, I was right the first.
Something is under the water. Okay. That's all for me.
All right. Troy.
Yep. Lake 7 right after this. Friday night, Last Call. We were going back and forth about what our topic's going to be, but I kind of like what Boomer came up with just before the stream. We are going to do a retrospective on the Tim Burton Batman and the whole, you know, craziness of Batmania in 1989.
And we're going to do the follow-up too, I think. Right? We're going to do both.
And yeah.
We'll
definitely 89 and Batman. That's what I mean. Tim Burton.
Yeah. We're going to do both. I mean, 89 will probably spend more time on, but they were both, they were interesting.
Separate those two. They really, really went together. And then yeah, and then I'm just guesting on other people's channels after that.
Cool. Boomer.
Yeah, you can catch me on Last Call this Friday and also on Geeky Geezers on Sunday. We'll be talking about all sorts of interesting things, which I always forget when I try to think of it. But definitely talk about these Oscar omissions. I did find an article on that, and also the return of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4. I'll bring that up, and we have other interests, probably more interesting things that I can't think of off the top of my head. But,
yeah. All right. Coming around to me. Sometime this week, it's a matter of getting our schedules to mesh. I will be joining Outlaw Bill, the newest member to my channel, by the way. Thank you, Connie, for action theater. And we are going to be watching Hard Rain from 1998. Morgan Freeman, Christian Slater, Minnie Driver, Ed Asner, and cousin Eddie himself, Andy Quinn. Of course, stay tuned to my channel. Coming attractions Thursday night at 11:30, and unscripted and reserved seats will be returning as well. So stay tuned. And of course, join us right back here. We have at least the next 5 episodes of this program planned. So join us here. We're not going anywhere. Same bat time, same bat channel. I do want to thank everyone who joined us tonight on X. I can't see you, but I know that you're there. And of course, everyone who joined us here in the live chat. You're part of what makes this show work. You're here every week, and I want to thank everybody who has stuck by us. All right. Troy, you were about to say.
No, I don't think I was.
Oh, I thought you were. Sorry.
I don't think so, no.
Must have misheard. All righty. Any last words before we close the show?
Stay right here to be redirected to Troy's channel for Lake 7.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Nutter, you're closing.
Well, we can talk amongst ourselves, and we frequently do. But it's so much more fun when you guys are joining us in the chat, and you're dropping the comments, questions, trivia, being goofy, whatever it may be. And it doesn't feel like we're separated by miles or continents in some cases, like Sashi being so far away from us. It feels like we're all hanging out in the same room. We're passing popcorn and having a great time. And you guys, you're not just our friends. You're our family. I mean, we love you guys. We appreciate you so very much. And we're so happy to see you here and all of our streams every single week. We don't do any of this for us. We do it for you. And I'm really happy that y'all keep coming back because we must be doing something right. Thank you for the many, many ways that you encourage us and support our channels and support and encourage each other. Connie, I want to thank you for all the memberships that you got for all of us tonight. That was really wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Can't recall if there were any super chats. If there were, thank you for those, for whoever dropped those.
Yeah.
But you guys are totally Osmo. I don't think this would be half as much fun to do if you guys weren't here. So thank you again for being here. And until next time, good night and God bless.
And it appears we lost Boomer. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close it out. Thank you all once again, everybody in the chat. Thank you once again, Connie and Ruby from HQ, the corner of Sparkwood and 21, in all points north, south, east, west, and beyond. Good night. Take care. Stay strong. Be safe and healthy, because this is how we win.